Hello, my name is Anthony Burokas with AHIWA Communications. When it comes to camcorders these days, people want everything to the moon and back, while the reality of what you can get is floating somewhere in between. Today I have a slew of tests of the JVC LS300, a very interesting micro 4/3 but super 35 size sensor video camcorder. Today's camera and sensor technology has evolved dramatically since the days of standard definition. With today's CMOS technology, you can hold the sensor in different ways, giving us high-speed capability and, in terms of the LS300, the ability to vary the size of the sensor, or what JVC calls variable sensor mapping. That means we have 8 different ways we can scale the sensor size for 4K. And this gives you the ability to use almost whatever lens you want to use on this camera. I have a slew of tests today, including latitude, extreme grading, handheld Warren aliasing, and sensor crop to test this camera. Here we are on the GH4. We're exposing again for outside, just below clipping. We are focused on the door, ISO 400, just like the LS300, at f of 4, shutter speed of 200th of a second, and we're going to lift up the door to see how much the compression on the GH4 compares to the compression on the LS300 at double the data rate. And this is the GH4 in 4K using the same exact lens. I am at ISO 400 and we are at a 3550, slightly different exposure because again I metered on the white on the LCD screen and set it just below clipping on the camera. This is a test of how the cameras handle backlighting and flare. Both are shooting in 4K. Both are set to micro 4/3. This is the LS300 with the 12 to 35, aperture of 4, 1000 speed, ISO 400. This is the GH4 with a 20mm lens, ISO of 400 and aperture of 4 and shutter of 1/1000th. And this is how, with a skylight behind them, how they're able to handle the exposure both with my face and the bright background. We're also going to try another exposure much darker, so try and recover the background and then lift my face. Alright, this is a bit more of an extreme test. The LS300 is at 1/10,000th of a second and the GH4 is at the highest of 1/8000th of a second. Both of them still shooting at f of 4 and both of them at ISO 400. And we're going to try to lift my face back up and get a good exposure on my face because right now on both of the screens it looks heavily underexposed. All right, this is to give you a little understanding as to what variable scan mapping is. There's my chart. Here's the camera. I'm going to come down here, look at the monitor, and you can see the center rectangle getting larger and larger. These are all the various sensor or virtual scans of the sensor that you can use when you're recording. Super 35, 97, 95, 92, 89,
83, 80, 76, 72, 67, 63, 59, 54, all the way down to what they call HD, which I'm guessing is the size of a 2/3 inch HD camera. And then work your way all the way back out. And they give you the circle here on the monitor so you can assess for yourself, you know, does my lens fall within that? You can see my lens crops here, but then there's a little bit of graying in the corners. So if I want to make sure that I'm within all of that, I might stop there, micro four thirds, which is actually what it is. It's a micro four thirds Lumix zoom lens. But if I needed something tighter, I could certainly go in a lot further and still deliver an HD image, and then also zoom in with the lens. And then if I wanted wider, I can go all the way out to there. This is a test chart. It's a very big test chart. The reason I printed it this big is because only by printing it this big could I make sure that there were no more in the chart itself at all these very fine resolutions throughout the test chart. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to test all the different various sizes of the sensor. We're going to move the camera a little bit, jiggle it, and see if we get some more and aliasing in this chart, because I know there's nothing in the chart, so it's all going to be in the camera if we see any. I have a zoom lens on here, that's why you get a little bit of vignetting in the edges. I have a zoom lens on here that's a micro four thirds lens. So right now we're at the Super 35 sensor size, and you get a little bit of aliasing, but I think the test will still stand true throughout the various sensor sizes of this lens. I hope there's enough room in this room that I can kind of keep the chart full frame as we zoom in without having to back up and leave the building, but we shall see. With that, let's begin. So this concludes the 4K tests. Now, the JVC LS300 can also record in HD, but I'm not going to put the HD videos in this 4K compilation. There's going to be a separate video, so if you're just worried about your HD tests, they're going to be in an HD video so that you can see that full screen on its own. All right, well, this is a test of depth of field. Depth of field, depth of focus, is directly related to the size of the sensor. In the LS300, we have a Super 35 sensor. In the GH4, we have a Micro Four Thirds sensor, but in 4K, it's a crop of that, so it's even smaller. So there's a great disparity between the sensor sizes here. I have a 20 millimeter on the LS300, and I have my 12 to 35 on the GH4. It's as wide as I can get it, which would be 12, but then the GH4, the 4K crop is supposed maybe a 14 millimeter. But I tried to make the angle of view on both cameras the same, position them in about the same spot. I can't literally have them be exactly the same. And then so you can see me, the close foreground, the far background, and assess which one gives you the greater cinematic look. Does the large sensor make a big enough difference? That's up to you to decide.
The JVC LS300 offers a lot of camera for the money, and aside from a few niggling, design issues, I think this is a very good camera. And I definitely recommend this camera to anyone who's really interested in cinematography and wants to get away from DSLRs and have the advantages of a camcorder, but still use a lot of different lenses on an interchangeable lens camcorder. My name is Anthony Burokas with AIVA Communications. Thanks for watching.